The cargo ship HSS Daejeon moved slowly through the darkness of space. Captain Taemin sat in his chair on the bridge, watching the stars pass by on the main screen. His ship was not fancy or powerful. It was just a simple freighter carrying medical supplies and building materials to a human colony far from Earth. 23 crew members worked on the ship, and most of them had been with Taemin for years. Ji-won stood at the engineering station, checking the ship's systems. She was the best engineer Taemin had ever worked with. Next to her, Byung-ho worked at the navigation console, making sure they stayed on course. First, Officer Da-eun walked onto the bridge carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to the captain and smiled. "Another quiet day in space," she said. Taemin took the coffee and nodded. "That's how I like it. Quiet and boring." But the quiet did not last long. Byung-ho's console started beeping. He looked at his screen, and his face went pale. "Captain, we have 3 ships coming toward us. They're moving fast." Taemin stood up from his chair. "Can you identify them?" Byung-ho worked quickly on his console. "Yes, sir. They're Valtrian warships. Military class." Everyone on the bridge became very still. The Valtrians were known across the galaxy as raiders and bullies. They attacked weaker ships and took whatever they wanted. Humans were still new to space travel, and many alien species thought they were easy targets. The 3 Valtrian ships surrounded the Daejeon. They were much bigger and stronger than the human freighter. Taemin knew his ship had no chance in a fight. He took a deep breath and opened a communication channel. "This is Captain Taemin of the HSS Daejeon. We are a peaceful cargo vessel on a humanitarian mission. We don't want any trouble." The main screen changed to show a Valtrian face. Commander Hyun-woo looked at Taemin with cold eyes. His skin was dark blue and covered with ridge patterns. When he spoke, his voice was rough and harsh. "Human ship, you are in Valtrian territory. You will surrender your cargo and pay taxation. If you refuse, we will take it by force." Taemin felt his heart beating fast, but he kept his voice calm. "Commander, this is neutral space according to galactic law. Our cargo is medicine and supplies for sick people. We can show you our documentation." Hyun-woo's face showed something like a smile, but it was not friendly. "Galactic law?" He laughed. "The strong make the law out here, human. You have 30 seconds to lower your shields and prepare for boarding." Taemin looked at Da-eun. She looked back at him with worried eyes. He knew what would happen if they surrendered. The Valtrians would take everything and probably kill them anyway, but if they ran, the warships would destroy them in seconds. "Commander, please be reasonable. These supplies are for children and families. People will die without them." Hyun-woo cut off the transmission. A moment later, the Daejeon shook violently. Red lights flashed all over the bridge. Ji-won grabbed onto her console to keep from falling. "They're firing on us," she shouted. "Shields are down to 60%. Another blast hit the ship. The lights flickered. Byung-ho worked frantically at his station. "I'm trying to send a distress signal," he said. "If I can just..." A third blast struck the Daejeon. Sparks flew from Byung-ho's console. The navigation officer fell back in his chair, but he kept working. After a few more seconds, he looked at the captain. "Distress signal sent, sir. It's automated. If anyone is close enough, they'll receive it." Taemin nodded. He pressed the ship-wide communication button. "All crew, this is the captain. We are being boarded. Do not resist. I repeat, do not resist. Stay calm and follow their orders. We will get through this." He looked at Da-eun again. "No matter what happens, we document everything. Make sure the black box is recording all of this." Da-eun went to a console and checked the ship's recording systems. "It's recording, Captain. Everything is being saved." The ship shook again, but this time, it was different. The Valtrians were attaching their boarding tubes to the Daejeon's airlocks. Taemin could hear the sound of cutting tools as the aliens forced their way through the doors. The bridge door exploded inward, 6 Valtrian soldiers rushed in, carrying weapons. They were tall and strong, and their armor made them look even bigger. The leader pointed his weapon at Taemin. "On the ground, all of you!" The human crew obeyed. They got down on their knees, with their hands behind their heads. Taemin watched as more Valtrian soldiers spread through his ship. He could hear shouting and weapons fire from other parts of the Daejeon. One of the soldiers grabbed Ji-won and pulled her to her feet. She struggled and tried to get away. The soldier hit her hard with the back of his weapon. She fell to the floor and did not move. Da-eun tried to help her, but another soldier kicked her back down. "Please," Taemin said. "We surrendered. There's no need for violence." The Valtrian leader walked over to Taemin and looked down at him. "You humans are all the same. Weak and soft. You don't belong in space." He raised his weapon and pointed it at Taemin's head. The captain closed his eyes and thought about his family back on Earth. He hoped the distress signal would reach someone. He hoped his crew would survive. The weapon fired. Over the next hour, the Valtrians moved through the entire ship. They killed 8 crew members who tried to resist or who they simply did not like. They took all the medical supplies and building materials from the cargo hold. They took food, water, and anything else of value. The surviving 15 crew members were dragged to one of the Valtrian warships and thrown into holding cells. Da-eun sat in the corner of a cell with 4 other crew members. Her face was bruised and her uniform was torn. She could still see Captain Taemin's face in her mind. The moment before he died. She felt tears on her cheeks, but she did not make any sound. She had to stay strong for the others. The Valtrian warships disconnected from the Daejeon and flew away, leaving the freighter drifting in space. The ship's lights were mostly off. Its engines were dead. The bridge was empty except for the bodies of the crew who had died there. But in a small, protected compartment deep inside the ship, the black box continued recording. Every moment of the attack was saved. Every face of the Valtrians was recorded. Every word spoken. Every crime committed. The Daejeon floated alone in the darkness, waiting to tell its story. 3 days passed before anyone found the Daejeon. A human patrol ship called the HSS Guardian was making its regular route through the sector when its sensors detected the drifting freighter. Lieutenant Sang-woo commanded the Guardian, and he knew something was wrong the moment he saw the Daejeon on his screen. "That ship looks dead in the water," his sensor officer said. "No power signature, no communications." Sang-woo ordered his ship to approach carefully. When they got close enough to see the Daejeon clearly, his crew became silent. The cargo ship had blast marks all over its hull. Several airlocks were forced open. Some windows were broken. "Prepare a boarding team," Sang-woo ordered. "Full gear. We don't know what we'll find over there." The lieutenant led 5 crew members across to the Daejeon. They entered through one of the damaged airlocks and turned on their helmet lights. The inside of the ship was dark and cold. Bodies floated in the corridors. Some wore human uniforms. Others wore Valtrian military armor. "They fought back," one of Sang-woo's team members said quietly. They made their way to the bridge. Sang-woo found Captain Taemin's body still strapped into the captain's chair. The lieutenant closed his eyes for a moment and said a silent prayer. Then he went to the ship's computer system and found the black box. "Got it," he said. "The recording is intact. Let's get this back to the Guardian." Back on his own ship, Sang-woo played the black box recording. He watched the entire attack from start to finish. He saw Commander Hyun-woo's face. He heard every word spoken. He saw the crew members being killed even after they surrendered. When the recording ended, Sang-woo sat in silence for a long time. "Send this to Fleet Command immediately," he finally said. "Mark it as Priority 1. The entire Defense Council needs to see this." The recording reached Earth 2 days later. It was sent to every government office, every military base, and every news network. Within hours, billions of humans had seen what happened to the Daejeon. They saw Captain Taemin trying to negotiate peacefully. They saw the unprovoked attack. They saw their people being murdered while trying to help sick colonists. The reaction was immediate and powerful. People gathered in the streets of every major city on Earth. They held pictures of the 8 crew members who died. They demanded action. News programs played the recording over and over. Politicians received thousands of messages every minute from angry citizens. Admiral Wu Jin sat in his office at military headquarters and watched the recording for the 17th time. He was a hard man who had spent 40 years in the Space Navy. He had fought in border conflicts and stopped pirate raids. But this recording made his blood boil in a way nothing else ever had. His door opened, and Ambassador Hei-Won walked in. She looked tired and angry. She had just returned from the Galactic Council meeting where she presented the evidence of the Valtrian attack. How did they respond? Wu Jin asked. Hei-Won dropped into a chair and shook her head. The Valtrian ambassador called it regrettable frontier violence. He offered to pay a small fine. The council mediator suggested arbitration and asked us to be patient with the process. Patient? Wu Jin's voice was cold. 15 of our people are prisoners somewhere. 8 are dead. And they want patience? The other species at the council murmured agreement with arbitration, Hei-Won continued. They see us as the new species. The inexperienced ones. They don't want to set a precedent of actually punishing attacks on our ships. They think if they ignore it, we'll just accept it and move on. Wu Jin stood up and looked out his window at the shipyards in orbit above Earth. Dozens of warships were being built there. Humanity had been preparing for conflict since the day they met other species. They hoped for peace, but they were not stupid. What does the Prime Minister say? He asked. There's a meeting in 2 hours. The Defense Council will present options. 2 hours later, Wu Jin stood in a secure conference room with the most powerful people in human government. Prime Minister Youngjia sat at the head of the table. She was a small woman with gray hair, but everyone in the room knew she had a will of iron. Fleet Admiral Kyung-soo presented 3 options. First, we can accept the Council's arbitration process. This could take years and probably won't result in any real justice. Second, we can impose economic sanctions on the Valtrian Empire. This might hurt them, but it won't get our people back. Third, we can respond with military force. What would a military response look like? Youngjia asked. Wu Jin stepped forward. We know where the Valtrians operate. We can track their ships. I can have a fleet ready in 1 week. We go in, destroy the ships responsible for the attack, rescue our people, and get out. The Galactic Council will condemn us, another council member said. They already condemned our people to death by doing nothing, Wu Jin replied. Youngjia was quiet for a long time. Everyone in the room waited. Finally, she spoke. Tro. I've been thinking about the faces of those 8 crew members. I've been thinking about Da-un and the others who are prisoners somewhere, probably being tortured or killed as we speak. I've been thinking about what message we send to the galaxy if we do nothing. She stood up and walked to a screen showing the Daejeon floating dead in space. Throughout our history, we've learned one lesson over and over. Appeasement doesn't work. Showing weakness to bullies only invites more attacks. If we accept this, if we go through their arbitration process and accept their empty apologies, then every pirate and raider in the galaxy will know that humans are easy targets. She turned to face the council. But if we respond with overwhelming force, if we make it clear that attacking human ships comes with a terrible price, then, maybe, we'll have real peace. Not peace through submission. Youngjia looked directly at Admiral Wu Jin. You have your authorization. Prepare your fleet. Find our people and bring them home. And make sure the Valtrians understand what it costs to attack us. Wu Jin saluted. Yes, Prime Minister. We answer with fire. The news spread quickly through military channels. Within hours, ships began gathering at the staging point near Mars. Crews reported for duty, with grim determination on their faces. Engineers worked around the clock to prepare weapons and shields. Intelligence officers analyzed every piece of data they had about Valtrian military positions. Ambassador HFY returned to the Galactic Council and made one final statement. Humanity presented evidence of an unprovoked attack on a humanitarian vessel. We asked for justice. You offered us bureaucracy and delays. You have chosen your path, and now we will choose ours. Do not interfere. When the council protested, HFY played the recording one more time. She let them watch the entire thing in silence. When it ended, she looked around the room at all the alien ambassadors. If this happened to your people, what would you do? Would you wait patiently while your citizens were murdered and taken prisoner? Or would you act? No one had an answer. HFY left the council chambers and returned to Earth. The time for talking was over. Now, it was time for action. Admiral Wu Jin stood on the bridge of the carrier HSS Incheon and watched his fleet assemble. 12 destroyers, 4 cruisers, and his flagship formed up in perfect formation near Mars. Every ship was ready for combat. Every crew member knew what they were fighting for. The operation was called Steel Rain, and it would be humanity's answer to the Valtrian attack. Captain Jae-hyun commanded the destroyer HSS Seoul, positioned at the front of the fleet. His tactical officer was Lieutenant Soo-jin, a young woman who had graduated top of her class at the Naval Academy. She had spent weeks studying every recorded battle involving Valtrian ships, learning their tactics and finding their weaknesses. All ships report ready, Admiral, the communications officer said. Wu Jin nodded. But before the fleet could move, they needed one more piece of information. They needed to know exactly where the Valtrian ships were, and where Da-eun and the other prisoners were being held. Commander Dong-hyun had left Earth 3 days earlier with a small team of Special Forces soldiers. They traveled in a captured Valtrian raider ship, using fake identification codes to move through enemy territory. Their mission was simple but extremely dangerous. Find the prisoners. Find the ships that attacked the Daejeon. Report back. Dong-hyun's ship approached a Valtrian space station in the Helion sector. His pilot, a skilled woman named Mina, kept the ship steady as they transmitted their fake codes. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the station responded and gave them permission to dock. We're in, Mina whispered. Dong-hyun and his team moved through the station wearing Valtrian armor they had taken from dead raiders. They kept their helmets on so no one would see their human faces. They walked past dozens of real Valtrian soldiers, trying to look like they belonged there. In a command center, Dong-hyun accessed a computer terminal. His technical specialist, Ji-hoon, hacked into the station's systems. After several tense minutes, he found what they needed. Got it, Ji-hoon whispered. The prisoners are being held in a facility on the 4th moon of this system. The 3 warships that attacked the Daejeon are docked at the military base here. They're being refueled for another raid. Dong-hyun memorized the information, and they carefully made their way back to their ship. Once they were clear of the station, Mina jumped the ship back to human space at maximum speed. The intelligence reached Admiral Wu Jin 6 hours later. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council learned about humanity's military preparations. They sent an urgent message demanding that the human fleet stand down. 5 different species threatened economic sanctions if humanity took military action. Ambassador HFY received the Council's message and sent back a single response. You had your chance to deliver justice. Now we will deliver ours. She then announced that humanity was closing all trade agreements with the species that threatened sanctions. The galaxy was shocked. Humans were willing to accept complete isolation rather than submit to threats. It was a move no one expected from the newest spacefaring species. Admiral Wu Jin's fleet jumped into the Helion sector exactly 1 week after the Daejeon was attacked. Alarms went off all across the Valtrian military base. Commander Hyun-woo, the same officer who had ordered the attack on the Daejeon, scrambled his ships to respond. He commanded 15 warships against humanity's 16. They actually came, one of his officers said with surprise. Hyunwoo laughed. Foolish humans. They think their tiny fleet can challenge us. Prepare for battle. We'll teach them their place in the galaxy. The Valtrian ships moved into a standard battle formation. They were bigger and had more armor than the human vessels. In any traditional space battle, they would have the advantage, but humans didn't fight traditional battles. Captain Jaehyun's destroyer, Seoul, launched forward at a speed that surprised the Valtrians. Behind him, 3 more destroyers moved in perfect coordination. Lieutenant Sujin watched her tactical screen with intense focus. Target their shield generators, she said calmly. Fire on my mark. The 4 human destroyers fired their railguns in a synchronized pattern. The solid metal projectiles moved at incredible speeds, hitting the lead Valtrian cruiser's shields in the exact same spot, one after another. The shields flickered and failed. The 5th shot tore through the hull. Target destroyed, Sujin reported. Moving to next target, the human ships moved like a pack of wolves hunting prey. They didn't stand still and trade shots, like Valtrian tactics expected. They moved constantly, their targeting computers linked through quantum communication systems that let them coordinate perfectly. When one ship drew fire, 3 others attacked from different angles. Admiral Wu Jin watched from the Incheon as his plan unfolded perfectly. The Valtrians had more ships, but they fought as individuals. Humans fought as a single unit. Every ship knew exactly where every other ship was. Every captain knew what every other captain was going to do before they did it. A Valtrian battleship fired its main weapon at the Seoul. Captain Jae-hyun's ship twisted away at the last second, and the shot missed. Before the battleship could fire again, the human cruiser HSS Gwangju hit it with a full missile barrage. The Valtrian ship's armor held, but it was damaged and slowed. This is Seoul to all ships, Jae-hyun transmitted. Target the damaged battleship, weapons free. 6 human ships turned their weapons on the battleship. The combined firepower was overwhelming. The battleship's shields collapsed, and its hull broke apart. The Valtrian crew tried to evacuate, but most didn't make it. Commander Hyunwoo watched in horror as his fleet fell apart. The 3 ships that had attacked the Daejeon tried to run away. They turned and started charging their jump drives to escape to hyperspace. "Oh no, you don't," Admiral Wu Jin said quietly. He ordered 3 of his fastest destroyers to pursue. The Valtrian ships were fast, but the human destroyers were faster. They caught up and fired their railguns at the fleeing ship's engines. One ship exploded immediately. The fleeing ships into time, and the fleeing ships were fired. The second ship's engines failed, and it was left drifting. The third ship managed to jump away, but not before taking heavy damage. The battle lasted only 43 minutes. 15 Valtrian warships had entered the battle. Only 3 managed to escape. The rest were destroyed or disabled. Commander Hyunwoo's flagship was one of the destroyed ships. He died when a human missile struck his bridge. While the fleet fought, Commander Dong-hyun and his Special Forces team launched a separate assault on the prison facility. They flew in on small, fast dropships that avoided the main battle. The prison was guarded by only 30 Valtrian soldiers. They expected no trouble from their prisoners. Dong-hyun's team hit the facility like a storm. They breached the walls with explosive charges and moved through the corridors with practiced precision. The Valtrian guards tried to fight back, but they were unprepared for the human soldiers' speed and skill. In the main cell block, Da-eun heard explosions and weapons fire getting closer. She and the other prisoners didn't know if they were being rescued or if something worse was happening. Then the door to their cell exploded open, and a figure in human combat armor stepped through. "First Officer Da-eun?" the soldier asked. Da-eun felt tears in her eyes. "Yes, that's me. Commander Dong-hyun, Human Special Forces. We're here to take you home." The team rescued all 14 human prisoners. On their way out, they also freed nearly 300 alien prisoners from other species that the Valtrians had captured. It was not part of the mission plan. But Dong-hyun made the decision anyway. Humanity would show the galaxy that they fought for principles, not just revenge. The prisoners were loaded onto transport ships and taken to the Incheon. When Da-un stepped onto the carrier's hangar deck, she saw hundreds of human sailors standing at attention. Admiral Wu Jin himself was there to greet her. "Welcome home, First Officer," he said. Da-un saluted, even though she was exhausted and injured. "The captain? And the others?" Wu Jin's expression was sad. "Captain Taemin and 7 others didn't make it. But their sacrifice was not in vain. The ships that killed them are destroyed. Justice has been served." Da-un nodded slowly. She had survived, but the cost had been terrible. Still, as she looked around at the human warships and the determined faces of the crew, she felt something she hadn't felt in days. She felt hope. News of the battle in the Helion sector spread across the galaxy faster than light. The Valtrian Empire was humiliated. They had lost 12 warships in less than an hour. Commander Hyun-woo, who had boasted about crushing the humans, was dead. The Empire's military pride was shattered. The Valtrian Grand Council met in their capital city. War Admiral Thorncall stood before them, his face dark with rage. He was the supreme commander of all Valtrian military forces, and he demanded revenge. "The humans must pay for this insult," he declared. "We will mobilize the Grand Fleet. 70 warships. We will crush them completely and make an example that the entire galaxy will remember." The Grand Council agreed. Within days, the largest Valtrian battle fleet in 50 years began assembling. Thorncall sent a message to Earth, demanding that Admiral Wu Jin be surrendered for war crimes. If humanity refused, the Valtrians promised total war. Prime Minister Young-ja received the message while meeting with her defense council. She read it aloud to the room, and several people looked worried. 70 warships was more than humanity's entire navy. If the Valtrians committed that many ships to battle, humans would be badly outnumbered. "What is your response, Prime Minister?" Ambassador Haewon asked. Young-ja looked at Admiral Wu Jin, who stood calmly in the corner. He showed no fear. She smiled slightly and composed her response. It was only 4 words long. "Come and take him." The message was broadcast across all galactic channels. Every species heard it. The Valtrians were furious, but other species began to look at humanity differently. These newcomers were not backing down even when facing overwhelming force. They were either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. The Kryn hegemony was a species known for their scientific knowledge. They did not fight wars themselves, but studied those who did. Senior researcher Velkon led a team analyzing human military tactics after the Helion sector battle. What they discovered deeply worried them. Velkon presented his findings to the Galactic Council in a closed session. "We need to understand what humans are. Aitzma," he began. "Every other spacefaring species in this galaxy developed space travel through cooperation. We built slowly, peacefully, over centuries. But humans are different." He displayed images of Earth's history on the large screen. Humans developed space travel during something they call the Cold War. Their space programs were designed to deliver weapons. While we were building telescopes to study stars, they were building rockets to destroy cities. In the last 1,000 years of their history, they have fought over 300 wars. War is not something unusual for them. It is normal. We have the person, and it just come from me. The other ambassadors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Velkon continued. "Their entire civilization is shaped by conflict. They have a saying, 'If you want peace, prepare for war.' Every human child learns military history. They study great battles the way we study mathematics. When they entered space, they did not come as explorers first. They came as survivors, expecting enemies." "What are you saying?" the council mediator asked. "I am saying the Valtrians made a fatal mistake. They saw humans being peaceful and thought they were weak. But humans are not peaceful by nature. They are restrained. There is a critical difference. When you remove that restraint, you do not face a peaceful species. You face something that has evolved through constant warfare. Back in human space, Admiral Wu Jin was planning his next move. War Admiral Thorncall's Grand Fleet was gathering, and long-range scouts reported they were preparing to attack New Busan, humanity's closest colony world. It was home to 12 million people. Wu Jin appeared to retreat. He pulled ships back from forward positions. He recalled patrol vessels. From the outside, it looked like humanity was preparing for a defensive stand. The Valtrians saw this as confirmation of human weakness. They believed their show of force had worked. But in a secret meeting room on Earth, Lieutenant Sujin was presenting a very different plan. She had spent 3 weeks analyzing every piece of data about Valtrian faster-than-light drives. She found something interesting. Their jump drives have a mathematical signature, she explained to Admiral Wu Jin and the Defense Council. It's like a fingerprint. Every species' FTL technology has one. I believe I can build a device that disrupts specifically Valtrian jump drives without affecting ours. How long would it take? Wu Jin asked. The devices are already built. We just need to deploy them in the right positions. Wu Jin smiled for the first time in weeks. Show me where. Over the next week, small human stealth ships moved through the New Busan system, placing quantum disruptor devices in carefully calculated positions. From the outside, it looked like they were just setting up defensive satellites. The Valtrians paid little attention to them. War Admiral Thorncall's Grand Fleet jumped into the New Busan system, expecting an easy victory. They thought they would find a frightened human colony with minimal defenses. Instead, they found 40 human warships waiting in perfect formation. Impossible, Thorncall said. They couldn't have gathered so many ships so quickly. His tactical officer checked the sensors again. It's confirmed, sir. 40 enemy vessels. Multiple capital ships. Thorncall realized he had been tricked. Admiral Wu Jin hadn't been retreating. He had been concentrating his forces. The Valtrian commander had 70 ships to humanity's 40, but the humans had chosen the battlefield. They knew this system. They had prepared for this battle. All ships, attack formation, Thorncall ordered. We still outnumber them. Destroy them all. The battle began with a massive exchange of weapons fire. Space lit up with explosions and energy beams. The Valtrian ships advanced in their standard formation, expecting to overwhelm the humans with their superior numbers. Captain Jae-hyun commanded the Seoul once again. His ship had been repaired and upgraded after the last battle. Lieutenant Soo-jin watched her tactical display with intense concentration. They're fighting like they always do, she observed. Predictable patterns. No adaptation. Then let's teach them something new. Jae-hyun said. The human fleet suddenly split into 3 groups and attacked from different angles. The Valtrian formation started to break apart as they tried to respond. All across the New Busan system, the hidden devices powered up and began transmitting. The Valtrian ships suddenly found their jump drives offline. They couldn't retreat. They couldn't call for reinforcements. They were trapped. What's happening? Thorncall demanded. Why can't we jump? Something is interfering with our drives, sir. All ships are reporting the same problem. For the first time, Thorncall felt real fear. He looked at his tactical screen and saw the human ships closing in. They were not fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to destroy. This was not a battle. It was an execution. The fighting was brutal and lasted 6 hours. Valtrian ships were tough, and their crews fought bravely, but they were trapped in a system chosen by their enemy, fighting an opponent who had studied their every weakness. Human ships moved with perfect coordination, focusing fire on one target at a time until it was destroyed, then moving to the next. The Valtrian battleship Revenge took dozens of hits but kept fighting. Its captain refused to surrender even as his ship fell apart around him. Captain Jae-hyun respected that courage, but he had his orders. The Seoul and 2 other destroyers concentrated their fire on the Revenge until it finally broke apart. War Admiral Thorncall's flagship was surrounded by 6 human warships. His shields were down and his weapons were damaged. He could see human ships destroying the last of his fleet. 70 proud warships had entered this system. Now only 3 were still running, badly damaged, and trying desperately to escape. Thorncall opened a final transmission to all ships, human and Valtrian alike. We thought them weak because they were peaceful. We were fools. They are not peaceful. They are restrained. There is a difference. A moment later, a missile hit his bridge. War Admiral Thorncall died instantly. His flagship exploded, and the last organized Valtrian resistance collapsed. 3 damaged ships managed to jump away when Sujin briefly turned off the disruptors to let them go. Admiral Wujin wanted survivors to carry the message back to the Empire. As the battle ended, Admiral Wujin stood on the bridge of the Incheon and looked at the tactical display. 47 Valtrian ships destroyed. 3 escaped. 0 human ships lost, though many were damaged. It was a victory that would be remembered for generations. The war ended not with a peace treaty, but with the collapse of the Valtrian Empire. Their military was broken. Their pride was shattered. The remaining Valtrian territories split into competing factions, each blaming the others for the disaster. The species that had terrorized weaker civilizations for decades was now fighting itself. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Every ambassador was present. The large chamber was filled with nervous conversation. No one knew what to expect from humanity now. They had proven themselves capable of terrible violence. Would they demand territory? Would they force the Valtrians into submission? Would they become the new threat to galactic peace? Ambassador Heywan entered the chamber and walked to the human delegation's seat. The room became silent. Every alien species watched her carefully. She stood and activated the main display screen, showing images from the battle at New Busan. "The war is over," she began. "The Valtrian military no longer exists as an organized force. They cannot threaten anyone anymore. Humanity could demand many things right now. We could take Valtrian territory. We could demand resources. We could force them to become our subjects." The ambassadors leaned forward, waiting to hear what price humanity would extract for their victory. "But we will do none of those things," Heywan continued. "We demand that the Galactic Council recognize a simple truth. Attacking human vessels, for any reason, constitutes an act of war. Humanitarian missions are sacrosanct. Medical ships, supply vessels, and colony transports must never be targeted." She paused and looked around the room. "We judge species not by their words, but by their actions. The Valtrians attacked a ship carrying medicine for sick children. When we presented evidence, you offered us arbitration and delays. You chose bureaucracy over justice. So, we delivered justice ourselves." The council mediator stood up. "Ambassador, surely you understand that if every species took military action whenever they felt wronged, the galaxy would descend into chaos. Then maybe the council should actually deliver justice when presented with clear evidence of crimes." Heywan replied. "Maybe you should protect the weak instead of making excuses for the strong. We came to you peacefully. We showed you proof. You did nothing. Do not blame us for the consequences of your inaction." Before anyone could respond, the chamber doors opened. First, Officer Da-un walked in, accompanied by the 13 other human prisoners who had been rescued. They wore clean uniforms now, but everyone could see the healing bruises on their faces, the way they moved carefully because of injuries still mending. Da-un approached the council podium. Ambassador Heywan stepped aside and gave her the floor. The young officer looked out at all the alien species gathered there. "My name is Da-un. I was first officer of the HSS Daejeon. I watched my captain try to negotiate peacefully with the Valtrians. I watched them kill him. Anyway, I was taken prisoner and spent days wondering if anyone would come for us. I wondered if our lives mattered to anyone." Her voice was steady but filled with emotion. "The Valtrians thought we were easy targets because we were peaceful. They were wrong. We didn't want this war. We wanted to deliver medicine. But when given the choice between submission and resistance, we chose to be dangerous rather than victims. We chose to show the galaxy that human lives have value, and attacking us has consequences. She looked directly at the council mediator. You could have prevented this war. All you had to do was stand up for what was right. Instead, you stood aside. Remember that when you judge humanity's actions. The chamber was completely silent when Da-Un finished speaking. She and the other survivors left the room. Ambassador Haewon prepared to follow them, but several other ambassadors approached her first. The Kryn representative spoke first. Ambassador, my government wishes to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity. We would like to propose a scientific and cultural exchange program. Others followed. The species, whose prisoners had been freed from the Valtrian facility, all offered friendship. They had not forgotten that humans rescued them, even though it was not part of the mission. That act of compassion had made an impression, but not everyone was pleased. 5 species that had threatened sanctions now found themselves isolated. Their trade agreements with humanity were gone, and many other species were reconsidering their relationships with them. Being seen as opposed to humanity was becoming politically dangerous. Admiral Wu Jin received an unexpected message 3 days after the council session. He was invited to join the Galactic Council's Military Advisory Board. It was a position of significant influence, overseeing peacekeeping operations and mediating military disputes between species. He accepted the invitation with one condition. A memorial would be built in the council chambers listing every victim of unpunished piracy and violence. The first 8 names on that memorial would be the crew of the Daejeon who died trying to help sick children. The council agreed. Back in human space, the military was reorganizing. Captain Jae-hyun was promoted to admiral and given command of the 5th Fleet, a new rapid response force designed to protect human interests anywhere in the galaxy. These ships would be faster and more heavily armed than anything humanity had built before. Lieutenant Sujin became the youngest captain in human history, at only 28 years old. She was given command of an experimental warship called the HSS Thunder, equipped with the most advanced weapons and defense systems human engineers could design. Her quantum disruptor technology was being installed on every major human warship. First Officer Da-Un requested and received command of her own ship. It was not a warship, but a hospital ship, built to provide medical care in disaster zones and conflict areas. The ship was named Daejeon II, honoring the vessel and crew that had started everything. But unlike the original Daejeon, this new ship was heavily armed and armored. It could defend itself and those it served. An entire destroyer squadron was assigned as its permanent escort. We still believe in helping people, Da-Un explained when asked about her choice. But now we do it with our eyes open and our weapons ready. 10 years passed. The galaxy changed in that time. The Daejeon incident became required study at military academies across hundreds of worlds. It was taught as a lesson in miscalculation, in the danger of confusing peacefulness with weakness. New species entering the galactic community received a specific warning during their orientation. The humans appear peaceful and friendly. They will trade with you, share technology, and help you when disasters strike. But never, ever attack their ships. Do not mistake their kindness for weakness. They restrained themselves once. Do not give them a reason to stop. The human merchant fleet grew larger every year. Human colonies spread to new worlds. Human culture began influencing other species. And everywhere they went, human ships traveled with military escorts, not because they expected trouble, but because they were prepared for it. Attacks on human vessels stopped entirely. Pirates and raiders learned to avoid ships flying the Earth flag. It was not worth the risk. Attack one human ship, and a fleet would come for you. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Paid for with Valtrian blood and pride. Prime Minister Youngjia, now retired but still influential, gave a speech on the 10th anniversary of the Daejeon attack. She stood before a memorial where the names of all human casualties from the war were inscribed. Thousands of people gathered to hear her speak. We did not seek this conflict, she said, but we will never apologize for defending ourselves. We came to the stars, hoping for peace, prepared for war. We offered friendship, but stood ready to fight. This is who we are. This is who we will always be." She paused and looked at the names on the memorial wall. "We honor those who fell by living the values they died protecting. We help those in need. We stand against injustice. We offer our hand in friendship to all species. But if you raise your hand against us, we will answer with fire. Not because we are cruel, but because we refuse to be prey. We choose to be dangerous in defense of the peaceful. We choose to be fearsome in protection of the vulnerable. We are humanity, and we will never again bow to those who would victimize us. This is our promise to those we lost. This is our message to the galaxy." The crowd stood silent for a moment, then began to applaud. Not cheering or celebrating, but showing respect for sacrifice and determination. They understood that peace was not the absence of violence, but the presence of justice. And humanity had proven willing to fight for that justice, no matter the cost. In orbit above Earth, the newest carrier in the human fleet was being commissioned. It was named HSS Taemin, after the captain who had tried to negotiate peacefully, even when facing death. The ship was massive and powerful, carrying enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. But its primary mission was not war. It was protection. Protection of human colonies, human ships, and human values. Admiral Woojin attended the commissioning ceremony. He was older now, his hair completely gray, but his eyes were still sharp. When asked to say a few words, he kept it simple. "This ship carries the name of a peaceful man who died trying to help others. We honor him, not by being peaceful at any cost, but by being strong enough to protect peace. That is the lesson the galaxy learned. That is the legacy we carry forward." The galaxy had indeed learned its lesson. Humanity was not the strongest species. They were not the oldest or the wisest. But they had proven one thing beyond any doubt. They were not easy targets. They would trade and negotiate and help those in need, but they would not be victims. Don't attack a human ship. Humanity answers with fire. This was not a threat. It was simply a fact, written in the wreckage of Valtrian warships and confirmed by a decade of peace that followed. The galaxy remembered, and the peace held. And somewhere in deep space, the hospital ship Daejeon II traveled to a colony suffering from disease, escorted by destroyers, carrying medicine and hope. Captain Dayun stood on her bridge and smiled. This was what Captain Taemin had died trying to do. Now they could do it safely. That was worth fighting for. That was worth the cost.